All right, welcome back to another episode of the Passion in Motion podcast. Today, I am joined by another very, very special guest. So excited for this conversation. I am here with Wadzi Garwe. Hi, Wadzi. How are you?
Fantastic, Mutsa. Really, really fantastic.
I love it. I love it. So, for people out there, we have Wadzi here today, and just to give you a little light on the work she's doing right now. She is the president of the International Civil Servants Association and is based in Rome. So, we're talking with the big honchos today. And, gonna hear all about her professional experience, personal experiences, how you got to where you got to, and everything else in between. So really excited to get into all those things. But, as you know, we're also both Zimbabweans.
Yes.
And we're going to talk a lot about, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Zimbabwean conversation in this chat. So, if you want to understand more about Zimbabwe or if you're Zimbabwean yourself, this is the podcast episode for you. So, first question is, what does it mean to be Zimbabwean for you?
Think, Mutsa, I've been looking at social media a lot, right? And there are all these people who say being Zimbabwean is like this, Anditi.
Yeah.
If you're Zimbabwean, you have to eat sadza, nyama, and veg.
Yeah.
Women have to dress a certain way. I saw the fallout over Zimfest, which happened in the UK. And people were like, women don't dress like that in Zimbabwe. They don't wear shorts. And I was like, which Zimbabwe are they talking about? Because the Zimbabwe I grew up in, right? My dad was a feminist. He had 4 girls. He didn't have a son, right? He brought me up to be responsible. He brought me up to be a civic-minded individual, right? And my dad, he cooked, he cleaned, and he ironed his own shirts. He was better at ironing, in fact, than my mom was, right? And both of them were professionals. My mom was a nurse. My dad was a teacher. My dad ended up as Minister of Education
Yes.
in the 90s. And then he passed in 1997. But I grew up with a partnership. So the Zimbabwe that I know is about partnerships. It's about respect, especially of women. My dad was very respectful of women. He was very respectful of his mother. And it was about managing relationships and tolerance. So I was brought up, my parents each had 7 siblings each, right? And my grandparents were alive. So I was taught tolerance from a young age because you know how you can imagine with 14 aunts and uncles, the different personalities that we came up against, right?
Yeah.
And I was just told to just manage. You won't like everybody. You respect everybody. You don't have to be friends with everybody. So I think this business of I'm in the diaspora, so I'm no longer Zimbabwean, or I'm in Zimbabwe because I stayed and I suffered, But we've also suffered in the diaspora, right? Not everybody leaves for the same reasons, right? Some people, I left, I'm still, my nationality is, I'm totally Zimbabwean. I don't have any other nationality. And I left for work. Work took me here and work takes me back home. So I work for the United Nations. As you said, I currently am the president of the Federation of International Civil Servants Associations, which is a conglomerate of staff associations. So you would call me a head trade unionist. I fight for staff rights, so this is a position I hold for 2 years. The 2 years ends in February next year. But in my day-to-day job, I'm an economist. I do financial and economic analysis. And I work for the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization. So that's who I am. And I'm 59 years old. I turned 59 on Monday.
Hey, wow. Oh, happy birthday. Happy belated birthday. Nice.
Thank
I
you.
love that. So much to even ask in that, and I have so many questions already, and I also went to school for economics. So maybe we'll have some economics chats.
I love money. Poverty is not my portion. I'm sorry. It's just not. I don't like poverty. I think poverty is expensive, and I don't like a poverty mindset. So for me, it's very important to have financial education and to have choices. If I were to be asked, if there's one thing in the world that you would want people to have, I want people to have choice.
Yes.
I want you to have the ability to make choices and
Mm.
have the ability to be able to effect those choices.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's like for me the truest form of freedom, having
Yes,
choice, right? Being
yes,
able to decide where you want to take your life, how you want to live your life, and all that good stuff. Then you can fully be a human being in general. Like,
exactly,
the absence of choice is what makes life difficult.
exactly. And there's
Yeah.
never an absence of choice. That's
Mm.
the point. Because even choosing not to participate is a choice.
Yeah.
There's never
Yeah.
an absence of choice. It's an absence of being able to take opportunities.
Mm.
And a poverty mindset is not about money. It's about how you view opportunity, right? So for
Mm.
me, somebody who'll say to me, but Imini, you don't come from a rural area, you don't know what I'm going through. I know people in rural areas who have educated people. My grandfather educated my father, and he
Mm.
was an agricultural extensionist, right? My dad
Mm.
was rural. He came from a rural background. And he became Minister of Education.
Mm.
So it's got nothing to do with where you were born. It's got to do with how you choose to live your life and take opportunities.
Yeah.
Because even now, I see Zimbabweans who have nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they go out, they hustle, they sell in the streets, and they send their kids to school. I know a lot of people who went to school because their mother sold tomatoes at the market. So it's how you choose to take the opportunities. A poverty mindset is when you have this dependency syndrome, where you think, I need I need to be
Mm.
kept by somebody. And that person, it's their responsibility to look after me. No, doesn't work
Yeah.
like that.
No, 100%. And people, one thing about Zimbabweans, hustlers. Zimbabweans know how to hustle. People, I know Zimbabweans at home usually like, I don't know if it grinds their gears or they hate it when like people in the diaspora are like, how are you guys managing over there? How are you guys like anytime? Because anytime people from the diaspora will go visit home and it's like, ish guys, this economy, I don't know how y'all are doing it. I can't handle this. And they are like, yo, this is life. And they're just moving on,
Exactly.
very resilient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Zimbabweans I walked into Zim in April this year, and everybody was saying, Kuskwita is not doing, we can't. And I'm like, you guys are busy. You guys are
Mm-hmm.
actually, doing something. I live in Italy where people don't have opportunities because it's so developed, right?
Yeah.
You need social grants to exist. In
Mm.
Zimbabwe, you need innovation because you have to wake up every day and think, how am I going to make money? So I find Zimbabwe innovative. I
Mm.
find it everybody's thinking of whatever the new hustle is, what's going on now, how do I make things work? And Zimbabweans are the most proactive. I found people using, their mobile phone to do so many things, sending money, I'm like, you can't do that in Italy. I cannot send you money in Italy using my mobile phone. I have to do a bank transfer.
That's actually crazy that you
That's what
can't
I'm
do that in
saying.
Italy. Yeah, that's actually
No,
mad.
they don't even have that. Now I think in the States they call it Zelle or whatever.
Yeah, or Cash App. Yeah, and
Italy,
all that.
Italy is not there yet.
Mm.
So I think people tend to look inward and be very, very critical. But
Mm.
I find the innovation in Africa in general and Zimbabwe in particular is amazing.
You know what? This raises another great point that people often, I think this is because of the colonial mindset and what white people have lied to black people about for a long, long period of time, that the West is where technology is, that's where the genius is, that's where industry is, all that stuff. But in actuality, it's in Africa, and it's in, like, if you think about the innovations that we do every day and like the things that we do, and even in like the Western spaces, when I think about all the black geniuses and inventors of stuff, like I think the internet, the World Wide Web, was created by a black man, right?
Yes.
So you think about all these things that were actually innovated by black people, and it's like, I wish more people, especially Africans, we'll probably get into this, as well. But I really do feel like Africa is literally like the focal point of the world. We have a lot more to, the world needs Africa more than Africa needs the world. That's what I always say,
Exactly.
which is why I always get angry at how things get portrayed like, oh, Africa is nothing. Africa is just, it's poverty. That poverty mindset is inflicted on us when in actuality I really wish more Africans could break out of that and realize that, you know what, we are actually the diamond. If you've watched Black Panther, Wakanda,
Yes.
Africa is
Yes.
Wakanda. It
Exactly.
actually, that's a true representation.
But you know what? I actually like the fact that people think like that,
Mm,
because you know what? They underestimate Africa.
mm,
If you think about money transfer, it started in Kenya with M-Pesa. They started money transfer, right?
mm,
If you think about what people are doing now with finance and everything, what we call Gono economics is what
mm-hmm,
the US is doing right now, right? So I'm like, we can give you lessons.
mm-hmm.
You want,
And we have the
we can write things. So I truly think, and I'll take you into the geopolitical shifts that are happening right now, right? We were talking about in the development world, people losing their jobs, right?
yes, yes,
Geopolitically, US withdrew funding. It's not just US, it's also the European Union, because people are concentrating on prioritizing the war financing, right?
mm,
And so what I have seen, and honestly, please, this is my opinion, so
yes,
don't get it twisted, but I
yes,
have seen that people from developing countries, brown people, right,
mm-hmm,
find it so much easier to adapt to these geopolitical issues. We have less stress around this geopolitical meltdown than
mm,
people who grew up in developed economies.
mm,
Because the people who are melting down, having mental health issues, who are not coping with losing their jobs, are actually the people who grew up in the West, or what you
mm-hmm,
would call global North. You know, people who are in the global South, it's like, oh, okay, pivot. I've got to find something else to do, right?
mm-hmm,
And I think this is the resilience that's been built into Africans, that because of what you were saying, what do I say? The way that we are portrayed, we are always portrayed as dependent.
mm,
And yet the dependency was a managed issue, right? It was, there's famine in Ethiopia, Africa is dysfunctional, and yet we are providing most of the world with most of its minerals, right?
exactly,
And we're providing most of the world with most of the human capital.
mm-hmm,
So if you look even in the north where you are, Nigerian doctors, Zimbabwean doctors, professionals, a lot of them are African. So for me, I'm like, underestimate us all you want. I always tell people I'm the original. I have the Eve gene. So you
mm-hmm,
still have to come back to me. I'm the
yes.
original.
The when I really saw like the way the West views us was COVID. When people were dying in millions in the West, right? And they're like, oh, Africa is just gonna be, oh, we can't even imagine what it's gonna be like enough, how they're gonna handle COVID. And yet you saw that it wasn't as bad as it was ever else.
We didn't
And people were
even
like,
blink. We
we didn't even
didn't
blink. Yeah,
even blink.
exactly. And people,
And the
yeah.
thing is, Africa is used to dealing with epidemics.
Mm-hmm.
Ebola was African. HIV was African, right?
Mm,
And for the record, Mutsa, I've been living with HIV for 33 years. I was
mm,
diagnosed in 1992, right?
mm,
I should be dead,
mm,
according to the world, right? But I'm not. And a lot of Africa is not dead. So we have the skills to manage crisis. We have the
mm,
resilience to bounce back from crisis. And this is one of our biggest superpowers, you know? And I truly think that, let them underestimate. I'm fine. Let them.
mm-hmm.
Let them, you know what's worse is when they
Yeah.
discover that. I like the fact that they think we're a shithole country, and they call
Mm.
us, this continent, a country,
Yes.
because once they discover, because everybody who comes doesn't want to leave, you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
and then suddenly we've got all these white experts who have no qualifications running around our continent. No, thank you. Stay in your beautiful whatever, technologically advanced. Me, I've got a hidden gem.
Mm-hmm. That was also one of my biggest gripes, even with the development space, because again, you see experts coming from the US or all these organizations, given how much work they do, like good work was done a little bit, but then for the most part, I would always have issues with people who like travel and like, oh, I'm going to be an expat in Liberia, in Zimbabwe, in Kenya, whatever, and I'm going to be the one leading the conversation on child marriage, on this, on HIV, on this, on famine, on hunger, whatever it was. And then they'll be like, I'm the expert here. And they wouldn't work with the local people. And most of those projects would, and I'm like, why is your project taking 30, 20, 50 years and nothing has really moved? What's going on here?
Motsa, it was employment creation.
Yeah.
I don't know why people thought they saw aid as a moral thing. Aid is a business.
Yeah.
Right? And the people who make return on investment are the people who invest in it. So, of course, they needed to create employment for their people. What did they do? They created aid workers. Right? So aid is just a business. It's just the way, it's the same way we sell Africa, is the same way they sold aid. We are helping you. But investment, if you look at how much we, even Zimbabweans, have provided in remittances, right? 3-4 times more than any aid that's ever gone into Zimbabwe. Every year. We provide billions. MoneyGram, Western Union, Mukuru, all those we are providing billions. But the narrative is, no, you need aid. Aid is a business, guys. So, I mean, once you look at the business, at the product, it cannot find a solution. Because I've been an aid worker for over 35 years, Mutsa. If the solutions were working, I should be out of a job.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But I can't, I would be taking away an income from myself. So you've got to, you've got to think about,
that was my thing. Yeah, because you're gonna work yourself out of the job. I'll be like, it makes more sense for you to drag this out for years and years and years because that's your income generator. There's no way you're gonna work yourself out of the job. It doesn't make sense.
There you go. So, and what has happened now is very good for Africa because governments had literally given up their responsibility.
Exactly.
They were not budgeting. They were budgeting for USAID. You know, USAID will pay for our health care. USAID will pay for, education. People will pay. So they had not taken responsibility. This is very good for our policymakers. It'll make us really rethink the game plan. So for me, I don't see, it's not a bad thing. It's just another industry. And people should see it as an industry. And like any industry, right? You crash. Nokia died, guys. Nokia. We used to have those bricks. You know, I had a brick. You know, it was like heavy lifting. But Nokia died. You know? When was the last time you had a Nokia phone? BlackBerry, I used to have a BlackBerry. I mean, that thing was innovative. It's gone, right? So I think people need to get you. I mean, the only thing you can plan for is death, right?
Yes.
If you are born, the only thing you can plan for is death. I don't understand why we don't apply the same matrix to the life of an industry. The only thing you can plan for is death, obsolescence. So I don't see this, everybody's like, this is the worst thing. No, it's not. We were getting complacent. And
exactly.
if you have to innovate or die, abhors a vacuum. Nature will find something to put into that vacuum. So we'll be fine.
Yeah.
We've
I
survived this
was
long.
exactly. Because I would have this conversation with people, and they'll be like, "Ayo, but Munsa, you're not being empathy. You're not having empathy for people who lost their jobs." And I was like, I was impacted myself, and my family was impacted, but ultimately, I was like, you know what? I think this whole thing was a blessing because people were too dependent on aid, and it also that made governments less accountable for stuff. But
Exactly.
now, if you were in Zimbabwe and your job was impacted, now it's like, now you can put pressure on your government. But Joshua, why were we depending on a US whatever to get, medicine? Why are
Yeah.
you not providing the medicine? Why are you, what's going on?
You
So
know,
that was like, hopefully people wake up and put pressure.
this is the main wife and the side chick, right?
Mm-hmm.
The guy was looking after the side chick. The US was
Mm-hmm.
looking after, and now
Yeah.
US is like, no, I've got to look after my main wife. And side chick
Mm-hmm.
is upset. It
Right.
doesn't work like that. Can I
Exactly.
side chick or side chick? You know?
Yeah.
Plan
I
for
love that.
you know,
Yeah.
plan for because this guy has a family.
Mm.
I have no stress with, member states deciding
Mm.
that they have to prioritize their citizens, right?
Mm.
That's how
Yeah.
it's meant to be.
That's how it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And if okay, fine, let's look at COVID. How many people lost their jobs during COVID?
Mm.
And the development sector was not affected.
Mm.
We skated through COVID. I was doing Zooms,
Yeah.
Teams, Zoom, whatever. That's what we got a paycheck through COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But governments now are dealing with the after effects of COVID, and they have to prioritize their citizens. It's not, I don't see it as being terrible or horrible. It's just an industry reality
Mm.
that they cannot put money into aid right now. They've got to concentrate on their citizens and walk.
Yeah. Exactly. And hopefully, that's why we need to also put pressure on our governments, like concentrate on us. Let's figure it out. Because you know what? Like, I always say this. I don't necessarily have a major problem with corruption, but at least be what's the way? Like at least be responsible with your corruption,
I know it's all like 10% and put the other 90% into the road, please.
Exactly. I don't mind, like, you can, like, take off your 50 million, fine. But at least invest 2, 3, 4, 5 million in the health industry, in this and this. It's okay. We won't even ask where's the rest of the money. We don't care. But invest back in the country. Take all the rest if you want it. I'm fine with that. But Kutora's there said taking everything. I'm like, okay, now you just come on.
Now you're just taking the piss, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And this is why corruption is bad for a country, because you get to a point where everybody's corrupt, right?
Mm.
You get to a point where even the guard at the gate, I know to know for you to get into the gate. Oh, come on now. Come on now.
Yeah, it gets too much.
It's too much. So this is the issue. But yeah. Anyway,
so okay. So the next, I want people to learn more about you and your journey and how you got to where you got to, because I know you've had such a great journey so far, and I really want to. So, how did you start from Zimbabwe? Like your educational background from, like, because I know you left Zim and you attended university in the States, and this was back in the time when I think this is even before independence, right?
No, it's after independence.
Was it after independence? Okay.
Yeah. So I was born in Bulawayo, right?
Okay.
And as I told you, my dad was a teacher, my mom was a nurse. My dad was a schools inspector. This was before. So I was born in 1966. So 1966 to 1980, Zimbabwe was still apartheid. It was Rhodesia, right? My parents were very forward looking. So when I started school, which is early 70s, they put me into multiracial schools. So I was one of the very first Black girls to go to multiracial schools, right? In fact, in Mutare convent, I went to the convent.
You're from Mutare.
You're from Mutare.
Yeah, I'm Wasu, born and bred.
Wasu. Yeah. You guys, secretive as anything. Secretive and hierarchical. In interim Zezuru, so we have no breaks. We have no filter. We're a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I went to Mtare Convent, first black girl in Mtare Convent. For the whole of primary school, I was the only black girl. So, and then Harare Convent, because the war was getting really strong. This was, it got really peak, peak 70s. So we were living with my grandmother in Highfields in Harare. So my parents, so at independence, right? There were very few professionals, right? Who had worked in government. So my parents were some of the few who had been in government, right? So my dad became ambassador in 1982. So we moved to Kenya. My dad opened the High Commission in Kenya in
Wow.
1982. So I was still at school. I was writing my O levels in 1982. Oh my God, aging me. So I stayed in Zim. I stayed with my uncles and aunts. And then 84, my dad was made ambassador to the US, Washington. So that's why I had finished my A levels. So I naturally just moved with the family to go and do my university. So I did my first degree at the University of Maryland, College Park, and then went back home. We went home. I joined the UNHCR. When I got home, I had studied finance, right? When I got home, we did not have finance, right? We had banking. So we had banks, we had tellers, we had all the infrastructure of banking, but I had studied stocks and shares.
I see.
So when I got there, there was no stock market, there was nothing. And I didn't want to be an accountant. I didn't want to be a banker. I studied finance. So I tried to do banking for a week. A whole week. I tried to reconcile. I hated it. It was in a basement. I just couldn't do it. And and we had recruitment agencies then, right? So I went to the recruitment agencies and I said, I'll do anything. I'll be a secretary. I'll do anything. I cannot do banking. And I got a job with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR. And it was how I got into development. Right? And I always say to people, your first degree is literally to see if you can get through a program by yourself. Because when you're at high school, you're managed.
Yeah.
Remember high school, your teacher would ask, where's your homework?
Exactly.
Yeah. You're managed. So college is the first time that you have to do something by yourself. You have to be independent. A lot of us leave home for college, right? It's the first time you're seeing what adulting is before all the responsibilities come. So I always say to people, your first degree is to see if you can get through, if you can adult, essentially, right? And so I didn't use my finance. I was a program assistant, right? So I learned how to program. And the thing was, computers. I was saying to you before, Mutsa, I was BBC, born before computers. Ka? So when I got to Zim, my dad when I finished O level, my father had made us. We were in Nairobi. My father had made us go to a typing course, right? So I was a very good touch typer. My dad was very visionary. So when we got to the States, they were just starting computers. We had to, you had to provide your papers with it as a computer. So because I could type, it was very easy for me, right? And so when I got to Zimbabwe, when I first got to UNHCR, I had a Ugandan boss. And the machine we had, the computer was called a Wang, WANG. So he would say, give it to Wadzi, she'll wang it. I used to wang. I started work when we had telexes. Do you know what a telex is?
I don't think I've heard of a telex. No, I don't know what that is.
We used to type messages, and then it would go almost like Morse code.
Wow.
Right? That's how we sent messages. And then we had dial-up. So my skills were translating, but they had nothing to do with what I'd studied, right? But the thing I always tell people is you've got to be versatile,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got to love to learn.
Mm.
And you've also got to learn that in order to progress, you have to be a sprog. I don't know if people know what a sprog is. Guys know what a sprog is because when they go to my son went to boarding school.
Mm.
So in Form 1, he was the sprog. So there's a hierarchy, right? In
Mm-hmm.
Form 1, you're the bottom of the you're the dirt beneath the shoe,
Yeah.
right?
Bottom
And
of
you
the
have
pecking
to
order.
work, you're the bottom of the barrel. And you have to work yourself up to become a prefect or get into Form 6 or whatever. Then you get the privileges. That's the same thing with work. You start off at the bottom.
Mm.
You start off being the one who's sent for everything. Wadzi, get me coffee. Wadzi, do this. Now, if somebody sends me to get coffee, I'll look at them up and down and say, you're sending me, 59
Done
years
my
old.
time.
you know, I'm a very expensive person to make you coffee. Let me tell you,
Mm.
That's not to
Mm.
say I will not make the coffee, but I'm just giving that example to say
Yes.
a lot of kids think, right now, I've got this great degree, I've done this and I should be a manager.
Mm.
No, those skills come with time. You have to go through the process. There are very few billionaires in this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's less than 1% of the people who can jump, leapfrog, right?
Mm.
And even when you read their stories, they didn't start off as billionaires, right? Everybody struggled. If you listen to Jay-Z,
Mm.
he used to sell drugs. Everybody struggles, right? By the time you get to billionaire status, and not everybody can be a billionaire,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like not everybody can have the privilege of a certain life. That's just
Mm.
life. It's got nothing to do with birth order or whatever. It's just got to do with life. It's got to do with your opportunities, etc. And it's got luck involved.
Mm.
So this is what I would say to people. Your degree does not have to determine what you will do, your first degree.
Mm.
So I worked with UNHCR and I worked with Mozambican refugees because it was the time of the Renamo Frelimo War.
Yeah.
And then after that, I moved to Mozambique because I wanted to see the other side. And I worked with an NGO. And it coincided with me running away with my ex-husband because you know how conservative Zimbabwe is.
Yes. Yes. So
Zimbabwe
you
is
eloped to Mozambique.
I didn't even elope. I wasn't sure I wanted to marry this. I wasn't sure I wanted to marry this Msama,
Mm. Yeah.
So but there was no way we could live in sin in Harare. Can you imagine? With my
Yeah.
dad being a minister, we were the celebrity kids, right? Because
Mm.
after independence, our fathers and my mother and my father were the it people, right? They were they were the politicians. My father-in-law was a businessman. So, these are it people.
Mm.
We're in the public eye, right?
Yeah.
So I couldn't disgrace my family. So we ran away to Mozambique. Border jumped and all, but that's a story for another day. And and
Good to hear that story one day.
you read my book with so we border jumped, we went and I started working for an NGO. So I learned Portuguese, right?
Mm.
And again, you got another skill, right? I now got a language skill and I got the skill about helping communities who are post-conflict, right?
Mm.
All these are building your resume. And some of the skills are not skills that you can say, oh, this is essentially ABC, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's tangential, but
Mm.
you're still learning something, right?
Yeah.
All of this is building my program management capabilities.
Mm.
Then got married. I got married in 1994. We returned home, prodigal son, prodigal daughter, had the wedding of a lifetime,
Yeah.
and then got married and I started working for a consulting firm, a development consulting firm. So this is what started my career, my current career. And I could use my finance again. I started to do financial and economic analysis. So I was
Mm.
back to doing financial and economic analysis, but in a development setting. So it's still not stocks and shares, right?
Yeah.
But it's still calculating return on investment. It's looking at community economic development, etc. So while I'm doing this in my career, I'm also growing my family. 2 kids. I need to just dial back a little. When I was 26, I discovered I was HIV positive. So this was a major turning point in my life, because at the time, 1 in 4 Zimbabweans was HIV positive and getting AIDS, and they were dying. If
Yeah.
you remember, you won't remember, you're young, but AIDS was a thing, you
It
know,
was a big thing. Yeah. Very back
mkondombera, the
then.
sleeping,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in many ways, it affected who I am today.
Mm.
When I found out, there was no New Start, there was no, we'll tell you, you get counseling.
Mm.
There was no counseling. I went for a drug test. I was buying insurance, and I was told, we can't give you insurance. You're HIV positive. That was it,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And and
That's actually
so
crazy.
it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
When you think about it now, the amount of preparation you're given. But of
Yeah.
course, it changes your trajectory. I started to live in the moment. And I've always lived in the moment. So for
Mm.
me, I take opportunities because I was like, "Ah, I could die tomorrow."
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
So I took opportunities. So after Mozambique, I came back. So I was working for this just development consulting firm run by an Australian couple. So
Mm.
that's how I got into financial and economic analysis. I started working for international financing institutions. So International Fund for Agricultural Development. I worked for the World Bank. I worked for the African Development Bank.
And
All
this is
these
all in
places.
Zimbabwe? This is all in
I
Harare.
was living in Zimbabwe, in Marondera. We actually built a house in Marondera, right? Near Ruzawi School.
Okay, cool.
So,
Where
so
they saw the aliens. Is that why? No, that's in Rua. That's in
that's
Rua.
in
I can't remember.
Rua.
Yeah.
That's in Rua.
Yeah.
And then, so I worked for this development consulting firm for about 10 years, I think 96 to 2002, right? And then I thought, but I can do this for myself. I can be a freelance consultant. So I started running, because what I'd done, I had established myself in an industry, right?
Mm.
And and there were very few African economists, right?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
people African women who had studied finance. So I was in a niche market. So I was in great demand. And because the consulting firm helped me build my portfolio, I could now branch out by myself. So
Mm.
another lesson I need to tell people is, apart from being versatile, right? You've got to build the network before you branch out, especially when you have a young family. I had a
Yeah.
young family, right? So I could not afford to let the family down.
Yes.
I was the primary breadwinner because, in development, you made quite a bit of money. So my ex-husband was a farmer and I was the development worker. So I had the consistent income, right?
Mm.
So when I went into consulting, it had to be a calculated risk. It couldn't just be, today I've just decided, Kuti, I don't
Exactly.
like what I do, I've got to do this, right?
Yeah.
But can I say that in entrepreneurship, I made the most money I've ever made. We managed to build a house, put our
Mm-hmm.
kids through private school. My kids went to Zawi and Falcon, you
Nice.
know.
Yeah.
I did everything I wanted. Entrepreneurship is risky, but it's also very high reward if you do it
Yes.
properly, right?
Yeah.
You work your ass off in
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship because it's all dependent on you. There's no one there,
To
kukugama.
help.
There's
Exactly.
the people who are helping you are family. It's your
Yeah.
kids, it's your ex-husband, it's everybody who's helping you like do it, but you are everything, right? So this is what people need to understand. Entrepreneurship can be the most rewarding thing you can do, but it's also the most risky. Because if I got sick, that was income gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was a one woman, consulting firm.
Mm.
So fast forward to 2007, I'm now seeing that my opportunities are getting limited because I didn't have a master's, right? I've
Mm.
got the practical experience, But Zimbabweans like paper. They like to see that you went
They
to
do.
school.
Exactly. Yeah. I was going to ask, yeah, when did the masters come in?
You know, especially
Yeah.
Manyika. Wakaenda
Yes.
kuskuru ere,
That's not in my paper.
So I could see that I was in where I was working, and now I wanted to apply for a job because I was like, Zim was going through the first economic downturn,
Yeah,
right?
2008 was the bad.
2007, 2008,
Yes.
hyperinflation and everything. And I was like, I need stability for the kids,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And so, but I couldn't compete because I didn't have a master's. The entry point into the development world was a master's. So I went and did my master's in Southern New Hampshire
Cool. Nice.
University. And the thing about that master's program was that I went for a 6-week summer intensive. So I was at school for 6 weeks intensively. Then I went home to do my thesis and to do online. And remember, 2008, we're still dining up. Yeah. Internet is not unlimited like it is now.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I live in Marondera. It's not Harare. And internet is highly expensive. Right.
At that time, it was bad.
But
Yeah.
the degree cost me $50,000. Right. So that's how much I had to invest in myself. But I made it because I was consulting. And
Mm-hmm.
because I planned for it, right? So this is what people need to understand. You have to so that's the third lesson, right? You've got to understand when you need to upgrade your skills. Because that skill upgrade, right? It's like now we were just talking about AI before we came into session, right? I need to understand how AI works because it's now a reality in my life. If I choose to be a dinosaur, I will be left behind. I will
Mm-hmm.
lose opportunities. So that's the third lesson. You've got to learn when to upgrade those skills. You've got to learn when it's like, okay, I'm still making enough money, right? I could literally have skated and continued like that,
Mm-hmm.
but I would keep losing opportunities because I didn't have the requisite qualifications,
Yeah.
right? So that's when I went, and you've got to do it within and the way it works for you. There was no way I could
Mm-hmm.
go to school full time,
Yeah.
right? Scholarships were not available. Um, so yeah, finding a scholarship is a full-time job as well. For anyone who's ever looked for a scholarship, finding the right scholarship, which would bring my
It's
family,
tough.
which would, yeah, you know? So I chose to pay for my education. And I chose to do it in a way that suited the family as well. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then after 2008, I started seriously job hunting because I was like, I had kids in private schools. You pay for your own healthcare. And remember, I'm HIV positive, so I need healthcare all the time. I had also had a very bad car accident in 2003, 2004. So I was recovering, all sorts of things. So I think people need to understand that life happens as well. Shit happens in life,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're
It does. Yeah.
skating along, life is going along, and you have a car accident,
Mm.
right? Things like this happen. So I then started looking for a job. And I started applying. And again, I told you, I live in the moment, I take opportunities. I
Yes.
met this guy who was like, Wadzi, the investment center in FAO is hiring, and you're a woman, you're an economist. I want to introduce you to the head of of the service chief of the of
Mm.
the of the of the African division. I was like, cool, you know. And so the next time I was in Rome, I literally I made an appointment and I went to see them. So now the thing people don't understand is, Mutsa, you will never think of me if I'm just an application and a name on an application, right? But if you meet me, you'll be like, oh no, Wadzi does that. Let me
Yeah.
call Wadzi. Do you see what I mean?
Mm.
So
Exactly.
what people need to understand is, as much as AI is fantastic at everything, the personal touch, we're communal people. The personal, person to person interaction is very important. So I
Yes.
met, and then when there were opportunities, I was emailed, please come and try. It took 18 months. They interviewed me the first time, and then they canceled the vacancy. It got to a point where even my mother was like, Wadzi, this FAO thing of yours. You know, when people say, my daughter, I think,
Ex-
you're getting
Do some time for
delusional.
something else. Yeah.
Yeah, So this
Yeah.
is another thing that I need to tell people. Perseverance is very
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yes.
Perseverance without delusion. Because there is also people who get delusional, right? And so you need to get to a point where you're like, I can walk away from this. I can
Mm.
literally, I've tried my best. I've put in
Mm.
all the work. I can walk away. And I can guarantee you the day that you decide to walk away is the day the opportunity comes. It's always
You know,
darkest before the dawn.
yeah, I think that's where like it gets tricky because it's like, okay, at which point do you persevere and then say, you know what, I've done it, I've done enough, it's time to walk away? Because there's that image that always is in my brain because I'm also like very interested in entrepreneurship. That's like where my for like this 9 to 5 thing is not where my I want to be like industrial entrepreneurial. So I'll I'll talk a bit more about that. But like for that, but that thing of like, okay, I'm going hard at this thing, but at which point do I say enough is enough? Let me walk away. Because you never want to get to a place where, like, there's that image of that guy who's digging underground looking for a diamond, and then he gives up right before the last dig. That's where the diamonds were. But at the same time, it's like, okay, but what if you're going down and down and down and there's no diamonds there? But if you just turn left, that's where the diamonds are actually. Like, you're just
Exactly.
digging right beside the diamonds, but you didn't know it because you never turned left. So it's
You
like,
need to, sometimes, Mutsa, it's very important to step away from something. Even if you
mm,
step away for a year or two,
yeah,
right? You can always come back to entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is not something that goes away. AI is not even going to take away from entrepreneurship,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You'll just find a different way to pivot. So pivoting is about so that would be my lesson number. I don't know what number I'm in. 5,
I think that's
right?
5 now. Yeah,
Yeah.
5.
Know when to walk away, you know? And it's okay, and be okay with walking away. It doesn't matter how much you've invested in a marriage, in a person, in a job, in anything that you feel I've put in so much investment, right?
Mm,
Walking away now is a failure. It's not. Sometimes walking away is the greatest thing you can ever do
mm,
because you've developed tunnel vision. That
mm,
place, because you're not seeing even the side outlets. You're so busy with that one idea that you're
yeah.
even when people are talking to you about this idea, it's always like, yeah, but no, you know? If you are still saying but no, then you stop listening. And
Mm,
there should never be a price to nothing should ever be greater, right? Than your
mm,
ability to walk away. Walking
yeah.
away is the greatest gift that you have because you can always pivot and you can always come back. And maybe that pivot will give you the missing thing that you were looking for that you never found.
That is
So
true.
so it gives you a chance to step away and that diamond will come back in another form. What's meant for you
Mm.
will always come to you. What's up? It
I truly
doesn't.
believe that. Yeah, that's one of my mantras. If it's
Yes,
meant for me, it will come for me.
it'll come for you, you know?
Yeah.
So this is so learn to kind of understand, but don't be, like I said, don't get to the point of delusion on either side. There's a
Mm,
delusion where you're like, no, I can always pivot, but you're not putting 100%.
mm.
What was is it Kobe? Kobe Bryant used to say,
Kobe
job's not
Bryant, yeah.
done, right? Job's
Mm,
not done.
mm,
So you need to be at the point where you're like, no, job's not done. I need
mm.
to go harder. But Kobe knew this lifestyle has a time limit. So he
Yeah.
was investing in other things,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is why I'm saying don't be so tunnel visioned that you haven't prepared yourself for shit happening, you know? So build enough in finance, we call it several streams of revenue, right? Or
Yes.
several streams
Yes.
of opportunity.
Yeah.
Some of them are not revenue streams yet, but they're opportunity streams, right? And sometimes going back to work is an opportunity. It's an
Mm.
opportunity for you to have a regular income. It's an opportunity for you and your family to be able to plan. And it's an opportunity for you to rethink your business plan, right?
Mm.
So entrepreneurship, I mean, Oprah made it in her 40s, right?
Yeah. And now you never
Colonel,
remember the times that she wasn't a billionaire.
exactly. Colonel Saunders was 60, I think, when he did the Kentucky Fried Chicken. So, entrepreneurship you can do at any age. However, growing your family, having children, spending time with them, that's very important because those moments you never get back.
Yeah. This is a
Time is
very
the only, time is the only commodity that you don't get back.
yeah, no, 100%. This is a very timely conversation for me because I've because of the all the Trump stuff that happened, and I then lost the consulting job that I was doing because of all the shutdowns and everything, right? And I thought, let me start this podcast. That's why this was like one of the, I was like, I've loved podcasting for a long time. I've done it with other podcasts. I was like, I want to do something that's more like this. One-on-one conversations with people about professional journeys, and I was like, let me invest my time and see where I can take this and maybe grow, I guess, entrepreneurship on YouTube and on all
Yes,
that. But like YouTube and social media is a very dark hole type space. It's
yes,
very hard to make it, especially depending on the content you're making and all that. And like it was just something that I was like, okay, let me invest my time. But it also comes with stressors because you don't making money right away, and there's no guarantee you make money. Like there's
exactly.
no guarantee you don't know when you make it, how you make it. But for me, the belief was that maybe at some point I'll have a conversation that leads to an opportunity, right? And that's maybe what
Exactly.
offshoots me going somewhere. But again, these are all hopes, right? That this is what's going to happen.
Exactly.
You can't really convince people in your life, and I like my parents, you can't really tell them like, I'm hoping that this is how it's going to go. And, that's not reassuring. Bills have to be paid. So I'm fortunate enough that, my wife has a nice stable job and she's
Yes,
able to just hold everything for some time. But still, that also adds its own stresses and
of
pressures. And
course.
I've had to debate for a long time, like, okay, now at what point do I leave the podcast behind, find a job? Because I know that if I start working full time, I might not
Yeah,
have enough time to invest in the podcast, right?
yeah,
But so it's a very real conversation, especially for me. That's what you were saying about, okay, knowing when to just walk away from something, concentrate on what's working, maybe just leave it behind, go work, and then come back later on. Maybe to
exactly.
work in that time period. So I think it's a very real thing, and I had to, at some point I was like, I can't keep doing this. I
No,
need to
you
actually
can't.
like figure it out
Yeah.
before I
And
make
the
it. Yeah.
and the thing is, for career podcasts, for example, right? It's very difficult. It's a very difficult because it's also niche markets, right?
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
only, and also you need to find um enough people to make you revenue, right? Enough
Yes.
people to like and subscribe and all that stuff.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
another enterprise. So I would always say to somebody, pivot for a while, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, you can make podcasts during the weekend, you know? You
Yeah.
can make it even a niche thing. Like I do it once a month and I do a
Mm.
podcast and I do. So it's not that you have to forget your dream. It's just a dream deferred. It's not
Mm.
a dream that's died, right?
Mm.
And you will find out as you go back to work or decide whatever you want to do, consulting, whatever, you will find that the answers you were looking for, you will find through that process. Because
Mm.
there's something that you're failing to unlock.
Yes.
And then you will meet the person who unlocks it for you by
Mm.
pivoting.
That's true.
The thing about what you're doing now is it's also you're not networking. You're not
Mm.
meeting people.
Mm.
Right? Yes, you're meeting them online and whatever, but people are not seeing you. They're not getting the Mutsa effect, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only way you can do that is by going to work, meeting people, interacting with people, right?
Mm.
Right now you're in studio. Yes, you get a great conversation with Wadzi, but Wadzi's gone, you know? And then
That's
the
true.
next
Yeah.
person gone. So that's the sixth lesson. Network.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
biggest asset is your network.
Mm.
And your network is not your family. In
Mm.
fact, your family will never pay for the stuff that you're doing because they'll just be like, that's Mutsa's hobby. You know? Even if
Yeah.
I like and subscribe to you, I'll never watch it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? All I'm
Yeah.
doing is saying, no, I'm supporting Mutsa and Dizzy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm not watching, I'm not, those clicks are not happening because it just doesn't happen. Right?
Mm.
Because you need a dedicated team that's clicking and whatever, subscribing and whatever, and the model won't work. So your networks, you need the networks. You need to
Mm.
broaden your networks. You need to, when you talk to people, suddenly you'll have an idea like, why didn't I think of that? Right?
That is so true.
Mm.
Yeah. No, you're really hitting the nail on the head, and I think you're absolutely right about, because you know what's funny? It's actually happened in multiple ways in my life. That thing you're talking right now, what you're describing about, like a pivot can actually lead to something that you didn't even expect, and it actually like leads to things that better things. So
Yeah.
in the story that you were about your life journey,
Yeah.
I relate a lot to what you've been talking about, because I also, as I told you earlier, I went to school. I have my undergrad degree in
Yes.
economics, right? I haven't really, and when my first job as well was a program assistant in
Yeah.
Washington D.C. So
Yeah.
that's what I was doing. I mean, but I really didn't feel like I was using my degree. Like, so I wasn't necessarily using what I learned. It was just like admin work. I'm helping out visas. I'm helping out materials for this company and all that stuff. And then I was at that job for 3 years. And then I think at some point in that first year, COVID happened, and then we went virtual. And then we started having to do my trainings and learnings, and so because it was there were one of their big clients was USAID.
Yes.
So we're like doing a lot of the virtual trainings and all that. And that's when I had to then learn virtual production, like how to do the virtual stuff. So then I started building that skill set. I didn't like it at first, but I was like, okay, it's fine. And then as time went on, immigration wise, I had to leave the US. And because I didn't get an H1B or whatever, so I had to leave.
Yes.
But because this was still virtual, I could still do the trainings, and I was like, okay, I'll become a consultant. That's how I got into the consultant. I was now just able to do this anywhere. So
Yeah.
now imagine now, like my life now, and then I moved to the UK where my parents are for a bit, but I was still able to do what I was doing virtually, and I was actually able to make money that way, and then move to the US for a little bit, and then now I'm in Canada. That's what I was doing. So it was just like this one skill, this virtual thing is actually what propelled me to be able to like
Exactly.
fund my life and even have money to pay for Rora for the wedding and all that stuff, and then now that chapter is closed, I think, because everything has happened. And now I'm like, okay, now I'm in a phase where I need to now figure something else out, pivot. Now I'm like doing other things, but that's what I'm saying. I relate to your story a lot, because I think my journey so far is kind of going the same direction that yours has gone. And it's a nice feeling to see you're the living, breathing example of how my life could actually end up.
Exactly.
And it's a great encouragement, I'll say. It's very encouraging for me to see that, okay, you managed to do all these things, and life has its ups and downs, but you're making it. And I can make it too. So I'm very encouraged.
And even in the job, right? So I joined FAO in 2010. So I go to Rome, right? And so the family moves to Rome, and we start. But within FAO, I've had 5 positions, right? So got to Rome in 2010. 13, they wanted to do mobility. Mobility is moving from your post. And I was like one of the early adopters. I was like, if we're being mobile, I want to go back to South Africa, right? So I went to South Africa, worked in South Africa 2013 to 2015. And then I was called back so I was first an economist doing just financial and economic analysis. When you go into the field, you become more generalist, right? Yes, I was still doing financial and economic analysis, but I was doing program management. I was looking after admin. I was doing everything. So, you become more rounded. Then I came back to a strategic planning position. So I learned how to become a strategist, right? And then I was moved when I went back to my original economic post. I I started working in Asia. So I went from working in Africa to working in Asia, right?
Wow.
So I went to I went to the Philippines, I went to Samoa, I went to Papua New Guinea, you know?
That is
So
awesome.
within the
Yeah.
same organization, I've done all this, right? And
Mm.
then fifth, I moved back to Southern Africa because my mom is aging now, right? So I
Mm.
want to be able to be going in this direction. If something happens and I'm in Asia, 36 hours, how do I get there? Right?
Yeah, that's the
Whereas
thing.
Ethiopian Airlines, 7 hours, I'm home. You know?
Exactly.
So I was doing this. So what you in the same organization, you can
Mm.
pivot as well. I'm one
Mm.
of these people who gets bored very quickly. I need my intellectual stimulation. But as soon
Mm.
as I get bored, I do something else. And this is what happened is I started to see that I was becoming bored, right? And
Mm.
then I started to invest in stuff. What do you call it? Looking after stuff. So I started to do this mobilizing stuff, looking at staff issues, trade unionist stuff, right? I was doing
Mm.
it at the same time as my main job, right?
Mm.
And then
Yeah.
when somebody said I actually broke my ankle in 2023, and so I was home, you know,
Mm.
grounded.
Yeah.
Gumborachkoka, you know, it's broken.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was thinking, I can't, because my job involves a lot of travel. And I was like, I really can't travel that much anymore,
Mm.
right? Especially I work in agricultural zones. So I'm
Yeah.
always kumusha. I'm in the villages, right? I'm
Mm.
talking to farmers in the village, etc.
Yeah.
So I was like, what am I going to do now? I had to rethink. I'm sitting on my couch, right? And my bedroom was upstairs. But because I've broken
Ish.
my leg, I'm
Yeah, you
now
can't
the
go
lounge
upstairs.
becomes my bedroom, right?
Yeah.
And so at that point, somebody said, "Wadzi, can we nominate you for the president of, Staff Federation?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool," because I was the general secretary of the Association of Professionals in FAO.
Mm.
And I was like, "Okay, please go ahead." And now I'm president of FICSA, right? I'm doing something that's completely different to my
Yeah.
economics. I'm protecting and defending staff rights. So for 2 years, I'm pivoting again and I'm learning new skills. I'm learning to be a politician. So I've
Mm.
gone from a technical expert to a politician, right?
Mm.
And that's why I say to you, Mutsa, and that's lesson number 7. Within where you are, right? Learn to find things that challenge you.
Mm.
The biggest issue is getting complacent.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
once you get complacent, we go back to the conversation we started with the aid. We got complacent in aid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you were asking, when will you ever solve these problems? People are asking, but you guys actually don't solve anything, right? And
Yeah.
that question was going to come. It makes sense because we haven't been solving anything.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what happens. So you have to learn to pivot. So that's the next lesson is find the things that always be in a place where you're being challenged. Even in the most boring job, you know? And I don't know what boring is because accountants love accounting for me is boring. But when I see an accountant doing they get so passionate,
Yes. Yeah, they
about
do. They do.
reconciliation. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
it's not that deep, Sha.
And it's just reconciliation.
But for that person, getting it and getting that, 000 and balancing it's his life's work or her life's work. So find the challenge, right? And the I think we have 5, 6, 7, 8. Number 8,
I think it's the
communicate.
8. This is number 8. Yeah.
Okay, communicate.
Mm.
If learn to communicate in a way that you're understood, right? And especially with your partner. Learn to communicate with your partner so that you take them along the journey. The
Mm.
reason I'm divorced is because I went so far ahead of my ex-husband and
Mm.
I emasculated him, right?
Mm.
And that's just his story to tell. But I think I was growing in my career and
Mm.
he wasn't seeing the equivalent growth in his career. Even though he
Mm.
was being challenged, he was doing farming, etc. I was out there. I was,
Yeah.
so I do think that communication is the most important thing with your partner, because you guys have to be in tandem.
Yeah.
You guys, you've got to be able to tell her, I love the Obamas. I love their story, because Michelle said, yes, I let him do his thing, but now he has to let me do mine. So
Mm.
you've got to do the same in your marriage. She's letting you do your thing, but you've got to get to a point where you're like, okay, honey, now ndakugama. It's me now
Mm.
who's gonna take
Yeah.
this load off you, and you do whatever it is you want to do. Right?
Mm.
You progress. So for you, both of you to progress, you have to communicate. And number
Mm.
9 is have hobbies that, if you are in a dead end job, right? If you're doing
Mm.
it because you need the paycheck, then your hobbies must be what gives you joy.
Mm.
So for me, I write books, I write blogs, I just write. And that's my outlet. So if I'm feeling some kind of way, right?
Yeah.
My Facebook, I told people, my Facebook is my journal. You guys are just getting my random thoughts. You're getting my my journal ideas, but people love it, you know?
Yeah, you know what? You know what's funny? When I told my wife that I'm having you on the podcast, she's like, "Oh, I know her from LinkedIn. I know she's always posting stuff." And she's like, she actually looked up to you because she's also now in development. Like she did development stuff. She's like, I actually looked up a lot. So she's looked up to you and your professional journey. Is like, I actually know her. Like she was just like, I really wanted to learn to be like you. So it was actually one of those. So I was like, oh, so now as you speak, I get it.
Yeah,
So
so you
that's
see,
awesome.
so you can. That's why I'm coming back to you saying your podcasting, this skill that you've developed will not go away, right? You might see it as a hobby, but it'll become something that you can monetize. But even if you can't monetize it, it'll become something that takes away the hell, right,
Mm,
from the job you're doing. And
yes.
so that would be my lesson number 9. And my lesson number 10 is know your values.
Mm,
So many of us will do yes, yes, rese. I'm just going to do it because it's giving me a paycheck. If
yeah.
it does not align with your values, don't do it.
Mm,
The reason I work with FAO is I've always been about service. I love giving back, but I'm not going to do it for free. I need to be paid. I'm sorry.
mm,
You know,
yeah.
I need
Yeah.
money. I told you I love money. So,
Bills need to be paid.
bills need to be paid. Children need to go through school, all the stuff.
Yeah.
So do something in which you align with your values.
Mm,
I mean, billionaires always tell you follow your passion and the money will come. That's nonsense. They clearly have never been brought up in Africa. You know, people are following their agricultural passion. They should be millionaires by now, you know? So what it is ensure that whatever you do aligns. Never get into an industry that goes against whatever you're doing, right? When I got a wealth manager and he was like, Wadzi, what are you investing in? I told him, please don't invest in defense stocks. I don't care how much
mm,
money it'll make me. I don't want to kill
yeah.
people, right?
Yeah.
So know where your values are, align with your values, know where
Mm,
your boundaries are, right? Honestly, in some jobs, you can make a fortune. And I'll go back to when I started my career. When I finished my degree, my first degree, I got a job on Wall Street.
wow.
The last year of finance, you actually do stocks and shares with a company. And I was one of the very few first African girls doing this, etc. Remember, this is 1989, right?
Yeah.
And I got a job on Wall Street. My father was like, never. I was like, dude, like, I'm going to be a millionaire in a few
Yeah,
years.
he said no.
He said no, because he said it doesn't align with who you are as a person. And he was right.
Yeah,
Right? Yes, I'm highly competitive. Wutsa, I will outcompete you because that's my nature.
yeah.
But I would have lost my soul,
Mm,
you know? And my
yeah.
father understood that, and I was mad as hell. I was like, this man has taken away millions from me, you
Mm,
know? But he gave me a life, you know? Would I have been married if I'd been a person on Wall Street? Who knows? Right? Would I have had the full rich life that I've had? Who knows? Right?
mm.
Now, before I leave, Mutsa, I don't know how long you want us to talk, but I wanted to talk about this picture behind me.
Yes.
So my daughter calls it the most egocentric thing I've ever done. She's like, Mom,
Hmm.
you got yourself painted.
I love that. I love that. Why
So,
not?
so what happened is in 2013, 2012, I was held up. I was held hostage, right? And it ended up in a culmination in me getting PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. I fell into a deep depression. And from 2013 to about 2020, I've been struggling with depression, right? To the point where in 2019, I went into a psychiatric hospital in Surrey, right?
Yeah.
It's the it was the darkest period of my life, but it's the
Hmm.
best thing that ever happened to me because I had to face myself. I finally had to come to terms with the HIV diagnosis that I had never
Hmm.
dealt with,
Hmm.
the failing marriage that I'd never dealt with, right? The PTSD from being held up. So all the things that Zimbabweans, we're very good at making a plan. And
Yes.
while we make a plan, we don't process the traumas that we've been going through. We don't acknowledge that we've been through stuff, right?
Hmm.
And so we come from a place of hurt,
Yeah.
right? And so what I did is as I healed and
Hmm.
I developed compassion for myself and I forgave myself for the person I was throughout that period, right?
Hmm.
My son says, Mom, you were unstoppable, right?
Hmm.
He was like, you just kept going.
Yeah.
And it's true. I was unstoppable. I had to get my family through, economic downturns. I had to get I had to get the masters done. I had to get stuff done. Right.
Yeah.
To the point where when I was 50, Mutsa, I had a crisis because
Hmm.
I never expected to live as long as I
Hmm.
lived. So
Hmm.
when I turned 50 in 2016, I was like, ish, I'm alive. What am I doing now? I had an existential crisis, you know,
Yeah.
because I wasn't
Yeah.
meant to live. I had HIV. I brought up my kids. They knew where the will was. They knew what was going to happen. My kids were
Hmm.
like, my kids are like hyper independent because their mom
Hmm.
was like, yeah, and if I die, you need to know where this is, and this is in
Yeah.
place, and you know. So when they were now old, and I'm like, I actually have been living for these humans and now they have a life. What am I going to do? I had a crisis,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So this picture behind me was older Wadzi looking at younger Wadzi and
Hmm.
saying, we're good. Don't, it was me speaking to my inner child.
Yeah.
So it's called Stepping into Wadzi. That's the painting, right? And then I wrote a book called Stepping into Wadzi, which provides life lessons from my life. And
Love that. Where's that book? Is that where can people get that book? I
Amazon,
want to read the book.
you can get it on Amazon.
Stepping into Wadzi.
Yeah, lessons from my life. I'll send you the link. So
Yeah, please do. I wanna put it in the when I post the
yes,
episode, I wanna have it there so that people can
yes.
can
No,
can
it's
have
called
access to it.
Stepping into Wadzi. So it tells the story of my life, but not as like a navel gazing exercise, but as
Hmm.
a lesson learned about my journey.
Hmm.
Right? And just
Yeah.
what I learned from it. So, what I want to say to you is exercise compassion with yourself. Your generation is very hard on themselves. I don't know who told you, You had to be a certain level. You had to make a certain income. You had to. My son is 31 and he keeps saying, "Mom, I haven't made it. Mom, I haven't." I'm like, dude, chill.
I've been there.
You
That's where
know?
I am. Like I'm 30 now, and I'm like, man, at this age, I thought, okay, I'll have a big house somewhere,
Yeah,
my little Porsche somewhere now. But I'm like, why am I still suffering through career transitions?
exactly.
I should be somewhere. But I'm like, but you know what though? Life is long at the end of
Yeah,
the day. I could make it in 2 years and I'll be fine. Or
exactly.
I could make it, I don't know. So I have to keep reminding myself, like, I don't need to put this pressure on myself like that.
You millennials are a nightmare. Can I just say? You guys are a night, and I don't know if we're the ones who have created you or whether you've created yourselves. Because I'm like, you're young, you're 31, right?
Mm,
This is the time when you need to be, especially if you don't have kids, you need to be exploring, right? You don't,
yeah.
and don't have kids before you're ready, please. They are just,
Mm,
I know sometimes mistakes happen and everything, but allow yourself the chance to know each other before you have kids,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and so those are the lessons from my journey. I've given you sort of a synopsis of my life.
This is a this is a great prelude to your book. I think even hearing this conversation, I feel like people would want to like actually like really get more of the deeper, nuanced experiences that you've had and the life lessons. I think now this provides really good context, but I think reading the book will probably really elevate as well, like just what those lessons really are. But this has been awesome. These are great, all great lessons. These have been such amazing lessons. Yeah, thank you so much for providing them.
It's really a pleasure. I looked at your questions when you sent them and I was like, yeah. And then you said it's a conversation. And I
Yes.
love conversations. So there's 3 books you have to read.
Mm,
The one I've written by myself is Stepping into Wadzi Lessons from My Life.
mm-hmm,
There's Township Girls, The Crossover Generation. That's the first book I wrote with 31 other women. And it's our experiences of crossing over from Rhodesia to Zimbabwe. So from the female perspective, from the crossover generation perspective. And I think your mom would love it
yeah, 100%.
because for your mom, it'll provide the context of why you are who you are and why we have pushed the millennial generation, right? Because we were the hope of our parents, right? So our
Yeah.
parents were the liberators, right? We were the ones who had to make it. We were the ones who went to private schools. We were the ones who all the hopes were poured into us, right? And even if it wasn't private school, it was a good public government school, right? So all the hopes and prayers of a nation were on us, right?
Mm.
So we're very driven. When I tell you we're highly competitive, we are highly competitive, right? So
Yeah.
that book is very important. Township Girls, the crossover generation, and then Beyond and Behind the Faces of HIV and AIDS.
Mm.
That's a story I compiled with 31 other people, and this is the story of my HIV and the
Mm.
journey with HIV. And the stigma around HIV. Because now, as a person who's trying to date, because I'm a divorcee, and then you
Mm-hmm.
tell somebody I'm HIV positive and they ghost you, like
Mm.
that man is gone, like it's his job. It's Baba, I want to disappear.
Ipapo gone.
Gone. And you're like, but undetectable is untransmitted. I can't give you HIV. But people are
Yeah.
still of that mindset, right?
Yeah.
So these are the 3 books, and I'll send you the links and everything.
Yes, please. Yeah.
That I would say would give you a 360 of my life. And if you really want to know these are the books.
Personally, myself, gonna get all 3. Personally, myself. If I can get them on Amazon, I'm personally getting all 3 books
You
because I
can get
think
all
they
3 on Amazon.
that's so amazing. Especially, I'm really excited for the crossover one because I've always been curious, like how because I mean I didn't ask this before. I mean, there's so many things. So I wanted to ask what your experience was. As you said, you're the first Black girl in so that transition to like being the apartheid, like where it was just Truguma townships, so like we're just in and then now you're like, okay, now they're putting us into these other spaces. Now you're like now joining white spaces and learning with white, I've always been curious about what that experience was like, especially in post Rhodesia, Zimbabwe now. Like, so I really want to read that book to
Read
really
the
get that
book and I'll
understanding.
introduce you to the authors. You could have a conversation with several of us.
I
Because
would love that.
we came at it from some people grew up in police camps, right? Some people
Mm,
grew up in the rural areas. So the word township just encompasses a generation,
everyone.
but it
Yeah.
was different experiences from different sides. So when you read the book, you'll get all these experiences, right? Girls who grew up
Yeah.
with their fathers, mothers, fathers in the military, you know, others who grew up in the township, others who grew up in the rural areas, right?
Mm.
Komboni and all sorts of things. So when you read the book, I'm telling you, it'll blow your mind. And then we can have another conversation with the authors of that book because
I
each
would love
one will
that.
give you a different perspective.
Oh my God, 100%. You know what? Maybe at some point we could even have like an audio conversation of the book, like with you, me, we co-host together, and then we just talk about the different stories and the different. I would love to do something like that.
It's read the book and I'm all in. I love these conversations because I think Zimbabweans think we're one-dimensional. We're
Exactly. Yeah.
multi-dimensional. We're amazing people, you know?
Mm.
I
And those stories are not
honestly,
out there. That's the
no.
other thing too. Like, I don't think I've seen those stories anywhere, or any, like, no one writes about it. No one really talks about that transition, that crossover. This is the first time I've actually ever thought about it, like, deeply. So I'm like, we need to have this out there. It's
We need
actually
to, yeah.
important, especially for the younger generation, to understand, Kuti, this is how it was. This is where we've come from. Just more context is always great.
And can I blow your mind?
Yes, please.
I'm currently editing Township Boys from the male perspective.
Oh my God.
So as soon as
I,
it's out,
I,
I'll let you know. This
please do.
I'm just helping with the, getting it out there.
Yes, please
So
do.
these
Yeah.
men have written this story. And once you read it, it'll blow your mind. So once you see Township Girls and then you'll have the male perspective, it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna blow your mind.
Oh man, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I'm bursting. I'm gonna order these books today. That's what I'm gonna get. I'm gonna get all of them.
I love
Definitely,
it. I love it,
definitely. Well,
Mutsa.
you know what? I think maybe our listeners at this point will be like, "Hey, guys, it's okay." So I think this is a great place to get to to stop the podcast. But I've really, really I feel really honored to sit here and speak with you on all these things, because you've been at the forefront of a lot of things. You're such a trailblazer in many, many ways already. So I just feel like really honored that I got to really get to interact with you, first of all, talk with you, hear with you about these stories, hear about your journey. Like I said, for me, it's been inspiring, it's been encouraging, and really informative, educational. So I haven't had many of these conversations about just like how life was growing up in Zimbabwe, like in 70s, 80s, all that. Like, of course, my parents would talk here and there, but parents, they're never really gonna
No, they're not
go
gonna
into the
tell
nitty
you. No,
gritties.
no, you need
Yeah,
to
they'll
talk
just be
to
like, "Ah, it was
you have to
okay."
talk to
Yeah,
the aunties and uncle because your parents
exactly,
they've got an image to protect,
exactly, exactly.
Because
So just hearing this,
in our generation, it's like
yeah,
somebody must have been number 30, you know?
somebody had to be there, but they won't say.
Nobody will tell you what didn't I do.
Yeah. That's
But
so funny.
Mota, I just wanted to say to your listeners, it's really important to be very compassionate with yourself. You are the generation that puts a lot of pressure on yourselves. You're the anxious generation. You're the generation
Mm-hmm.
that has a lot of mental health issues because you're putting so much pressure. Life is long. At the same
Mm-hmm.
time, life is short, right? You
Mm.
could die tomorrow, or you could live at 80s, 90s now, right? Because of
Mm.
science. In fact, my book, Beyond and Behind the Faces of HIV and AIDS, my chapter is called A Miracle of Science. Science means we can
Mm.
live long. So what
Yeah.
I'm saying to you is be compassionate with yourself.
Mm.
Forgive yourself. Life happens. Shit truly happens. Pivoting is just life, you know? It's not even anything. Sometimes I broke an ankle, right? my life was going. I had plans.
Mm,
I got on a bicycle with a dog, and then I broke my ankle, right? So exercise, attend to your basic needs with compassion. That's
mm.
what I'd like to say to the
That's
listeners.
a great last message to end with, because I do think people need to be very compassionate with themselves, especially in this day and age. So you're completely right. That is a very important message to send out to the world right now, especially. So I really hope that if there's anything anyone takes away from this chat, this conversation, that's the one thing they really take away from. Just be compassionate about yourself. Pat yourself on the back and say, I've made it this far and I can keep making it. All that good stuff. So no, thank you so much. And yeah, you know what? Listen out with that. We appreciate you, and we will catch you on the next episode.